Good evening, everybody. I appreciate your time, and I was a little bit late arriving for a reason. I had the unique opportunity to speak at the rally last week, and my wife and I went to dinner afterwards. And we sat down, we went to Chuck's, and Stan Baker, who is a Athens resident, who is now a federal judge in Savannah, was there, and I happened to see him. And I thought about his rise and where he is and what a great story he is for Athens. And I sat down and I said, Stan's touched a lot of people on the federal bench. And I feel at this point that when I go and speak at these rallies, and I saw across the way some protesters against a safety rally, and I to this day, I don't know what that means. I don't know how you protest a safety rally where we're asking for a safer Athens. I don't understand that. I heard one of the protesters say, we need to stop the rape and sexual assault of women by continuing to sending funds to Ukraine. And I just don't know what that statement means. And I saw someone with some anti-signs within it. And then I just realized, this message that I'm trying to get out, where we started long before the political season, just to try to get the truth of what's happening in the district attorney, is maybe I'm just not reaching everybody that needs to vote and needs to be thinking about this. So I sent an email to the ACC Democrats right before I came over and asked to come speak to them, and I'm going to tell you why. You can go online right now and you can look at a YouTube video of Ms. Gonzalez speaking to the Democrats last month. It was about 10 minutes. And the story that was being put out to them is absolutely false, 110% false. And I feel as if they would just give me the opportunity. I told them that I would not come and advocate for any political opponent of Ms. Gonzalez. I just want to speak about the 3 Marcy's Law cases. I want to state about the facts, and I want to state what the court found, and just give you kind of a full picture of what's happening inside the district attorney's office, because quite frankly, what this means for us, it's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's really not independent. It's about whether or not can we come together on some basic issues. I think everybody in this room and everybody that's a Democrat and everybody that's an independent would agree with me that a 3-year-old shot in a trailer because of gang-related violence is unacceptable.
That's right.
Yes, that's
I think everybody would agree with me, Democrat, Republican, or Independent, that a child being raped and then drugged by her father in order to keep her silent is unacceptable in any party.
Yeah.
I think a DUI, hitting someone and almost killing them and running away from the scene and the charges being dismissed when that person could be dead is unacceptable across any of the parties. So I want to speak to anybody that will take me. And I'm going to give you one more, for instance, and then I'm going to talk about this. I had to go to the doctor Friday, and the front person was there, and we just got into a conversation with each other, and we just were talking about kids, and she said, my kid's about to turn 18. I said, oh, well, he'll get to vote. Where do y'all live? And she said, Athens, Clark County. I said, well, let me tell you about a race you need to be really concerned about. And it's the district attorney's race. And she looked at me and she goes, who's running?
Oh my gosh.
Who's running? No idea. No clue.
Yep.
So I said this at the Oconee Republican meeting, and I'm going to say it to here. And the reason that I've told you about why I emailed the Democrats, okay? It doesn't do us any good in this room to keep saying to each other, don't vote for Deborah. It doesn't do us any good to say, vote for Stephanie or Mama. We know who we're going to support, right? You know what you're going to do. In this room, you're just hearing evidence from me to perhaps go out and tell other people what's really going on, right? But we have to start thinking a little bit out of the box, and reaching people that we normally wouldn't reach. They had a sign that says hate doesn't heal. In my speech, I said, you're right, hate doesn't heal. It does not heal this city. But what I can tell you is if I challenged each one of you to leave this meeting and contact 20 people to talk to them about the district attorney's race, I bet you the same way at that doctor's meeting that they would say, well, who's running? I can't tell you how many calls I get about Kalki's petition. I thought he was already on the ballot. What is this petition for? Some people don't even know why they're signing it. And so it takes educated people like y'all who are hearing these facts, who are showing up at the meetings, that are listening, to talk to 20 people. I will, and yeah, I am busy, but I make a commitment to anybody in this room. This is how important this is to me. I will come to a neighborhood meeting. Get me 10 folks. And if I can start, I'll come talk. We'll get it on the calendar. I'll do it. I'll make that commitment to y'all. Any one of you in this meeting. Any one of your friends. An HOA meeting, I'll come. We are in the fight for our community,
That's
folks.
right. That's right.
I'm going to change something, okay? I've heard the term sanctuary city over and over and over and over again. I don't think that's the correct term. I think Athens has become a safe harbor city. Sanctuary means that somebody needs to go to seek sanctuary, where they're in trouble and they need help. Safe harbor is where somebody comes to avoid something happening to them. That is what needs to be said. So then you have to ask yourself, how did we get to this point? I will say Miss Riley's name, but I refuse to say the man that killed him. He is a murderer. I will not say his name. So how did we get to this point? Right? Well, what we have allowed to happen is that there was an election of a DA, an election of a sheriff, an election of a commission, and an election of a mayor that collectively has put together a safe harbor city.
Yes.
Their policies have worked towards
Yes.
a safe harbor city, and it didn't just take one of them, it took all of them to make this right.
Yes, that's right.
So I need y'all to understand what we're facing. If you don't have Mama or Stephanie stepping up and doing these things to get to that aspect of it, because we've got a problem in all of them.
That's right.
And I listened to Sheriff Williams talk with Tim Bryant, and boy, what a reverse course he made.
Yes, he did.
Because I know what the sheriff actually does across the river, what Sheriff Hale's done, who, by the way, has someone running against him now. But he has the cell phone number of a vice agent. And if someone comes into his jail that has a vice warrant, who is illegal, and I'm not afraid to say that name, illegal, he calls that agent to come get them. That's what a committed sheriff does. So, these messages that are being delivered out to it, and I said this in the round, our mayor has said that he wants to be a welcoming community. Okay, well, you can be a welcoming community and you can enforce our laws. They're not at war with each other.
That's right.
That's right.
So that's where we need to think about this in its totality. So I want to give you a for instance of what Ms. Gonzalez has done in response to this national media that has been put. I want y'all to think about this, right? The President of the United States, although incorrectly, stated the name of a nursing student. That was in an intramural field. Who was assaulted and dragged to a forest, beaten, raped, and left for dead. And that name made its way to the president's mouth and spoken to our city, and it happened in our backyard. Do y'all know where that apartment complex where those 5 individuals live? Draw a circle of a half mile around that apartment complex. Draw it. How many of your friends and family were touched by those individuals that could walk to you? How many of those individuals that had the freight green card, how many of those individuals full UGA to be able to work there? There's an importance of what happened in the federal case, folks. This is just not a normal case. The feds have told you what they were. They were a Venezuelan prison gang, a very violent gang. And I said it in the Republican meeting in Oconee, and I'll say it to y'all. When everybody tells me and talks to me about how he got from El Paso to the release in New York, to taking his 17-year-old kid, delivering Uber Eats in New York with a kid without a helmet. That's why he got arrested. To being released, who making his way in Atlanta, who then made his way in Athens because a phone call happened. And yes, I'm speculating, but some version of this phone call did happen to this murderer.
He punched 2 Border Patrol agents the day he entered the country, sir.
May have been, but the point is, at some point, a phone call was made from his brother that says, come to Athens. You can get away with murder.
Yes. Literally.
And I'll tell you why. Organized crime understands organized crime. Meaning that they tell you if you want to come here, if this Venezuelan gang is operating in our backyard, it's not the first time that they've had people come to Athens. So Riley happens, and there's a blitzkrieg. There's a media blitzkrieg, right? I got contacted by more news outlets to talk to them about the DA situation, because what happened is Riley happens, they Google my name, and then they find out, oh Lord, look what's happening in the little town of Athens. And that attention, that media gave us something that we had not had before.
Right.
A chance to get ahead of the game.
That's right.
So what we did is we said, okay, instead of the situation where we've got to come into after the fact with the Marsy's Law violation, for the first time we get to come out ahead for the victim and say, this DA cannot prosecute this case. She does not and cannot do it. She's already admitted that once, which the case is up in the Court of Appeals right now, which I recently argued at the Court of Appeals. And the case from the Supreme Court, where she doesn't want to turn over the open records request, is now up for oral arguments. So they saw all this, and we've gotten blitzkrieg. What did she do in response? What did she do in response? What did your elected DA do? Did she hold a press conference to say, I am your district attorney. I am the one that can prosecute this case. I am the one that can bring justice to the Riley family? No, she did not. I do know this. She sent an email out to the judges on the Sunday after it, saying that her father was ill, and she left for Florida. She then proceeded to go to Florida during this time. In a high-profile murder like this, district attorneys across the state and across this country typically go to the murder site so that they can, one day when they prosecute it, be able to speak to the facts and evidence from personal review. She sent an investigator. Miss Riley's body lay there from the morning in which she was killed until that evening. Miss Gonzalez never set foot. On February 26th, she released a press release. And this is what she told you. Sheila Ross, from the Prosecuting Attorney's Council, will return to the Western District. We welcome her back as a knowledgeable and well-respected trial attorney with the expertise ready to bring justice on behalf of Laken Riley. Well, what did we vote you for?
That's right.
Do y'all know what the PAC is? I've spoken about it. It's not phone a friend, folks. It's not when you can't do your job, you ask the PAC to send an attorney that can. They are very, very rarely used. She has used them like it's a candy store. On Monday, when she went to go qualify in Atlanta, she brought PAC attorneys over to cover her court appearances so she could qualify in Atlanta. Why? Because she only has 2 attorneys left that will actually go to court. She has 3 ADAs. 1 refuses to go to court for an office of 17 ADAs. Now, the spin. What else did she say? From day one, I want y'all to hear this. This is on February 26, 2024. From day one, our office has worked diligently to keep this community safe from anyone who seeks to do harm. This includes those who believe that violence is the answer. Okay. That's her message that she sent out to everyone. That's the message that she said that's what she's doing. 3 days later. 3 days. In court. State v. Tyler Lemire Ridgeway. Multiple errors by the District Attorney Gonzalez resulted in a dismissal on February 29th, 3 days after she says that she is standing against violence, of armed robbery and aggravated assault charges. What did she fail to do? She failed to obtain an indictment within 90 days. I want to explain something to y'all. I'm going to teach you a little bit about the law. When someone gets arrested, like the murderer of Mrs. Riley, the charges go up to the Superior Court, and at that moment, they can move for bond. When bond is denied, the DA has a clock that starts. They have 90 days to get an indictment. 90 days. What do y'all think about an office that has 3 ADAs built for 17, a district attorney who barely knows how to get through a court hearing? What do you think happens to all these cases that pile up? Do you think that they could possibly get these cases indicted in 90 days? Nope. Do you know what happens after the 90 days? Mandatory bond. They're mandatorily get a bond and are released back into this community. So what she did, just so you know, is that her office had 2 cases against Mr. Ridgeway. One less serious and one with armed robbery and aggravated assault. She failed to put the 2 cases together, which a seasoned DA would know. She pled the lesser one. Guess what happened? The other case got dismissed. 3 days. So she tells the public that she's out prosecuting violence. And 3 days later, I just told y'all, I guarantee you that if I put you in as an ADA in her office, the number one thing y'all would all say is, man, we got 90 days to indict this person. We got to get this taken care of, or they're going to get back out on the streets. And then the State v. Michael Daniel case. That's the case Gordon spoke about. That's the case that I first spoke to this group. That's the case where the father raped his daughter, raped his other daughter, while their mother slept, fed them drugs into their food to keep them from going to the counselor, and anytime that the counselor thought something was wrong, he would amazingly be an involved parent in their household. While Miss Gonzalez had the case, he got a burner phone in prison. A burner phone. They call them toilet phones. He admitted to the crime, admitted to it, and contacted the victim in violation of bond order. During the Marcy's Law hearing, one of the officers that actually was the detective that worked the case found this out and sought warrants when Mrs. Gonzalez's office would not. She dismissed the case. And I have all told you about the heartfelt stories of how they dismissed the case. Just give you a synopsis of it. The week that the case was supposed to go to trial, Robert Wilson, who's no longer with their office, by the way, he left, called them to the courthouse within a day's notice in a major case, walked them into a conference room, would not let them in the courtroom, and for 3 separate instances tried to convince them to dismiss the case against this guy. In the last one, the little 16-year-old said, it's okay if you lose the case. I just want to confront him. It's okay. This is a teenager comforting a prosecutor to prosecute a sex crime case against their family. And what did he do? He walked him there into the courtroom and dismissed it. And how did he dismiss it? What did he put down? What did he say? While there was enough evidence to arrest this individual, the state does not believe, listen to this, the state does not believe that they can prove this gentleman's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. They wrote that in the dismissal. We bring the Marcy's Law case and revive it. And like Miss Riley's case, even though this had traveled so far down the road, we got Miss Gonzalez's office removed. Randy McGinley, who's the elected DA over in Walton County and Newton County, is assigned by Pat to take the case. The judge moves the case to the top of the calendar. Now, one of the things that criminal defense attorneys love about Athens, Clarke County, and one of the things that criminal defense attorneys love about the liberal nature of Athens, Clarke County, is it is very, very, very difficult to get a conviction in Athens, Clarke County. Right, Teresa? Most DUIs, they don't convict. Most crimes, they don't convict. Go sit on a jury panel and you'll see. Even when we had Ken Malden, it was difficult. But Randy came over and tried the case. The little girl got to testify. She stood up to the cross-examination of Mr. Daniels' attorney, calling her a liar, calling her sister a liar. But remember what I told you? He admitted on that toilet phone about what he did. Remember that? Jury returned a verdict in 45 minutes on the following charges: guilty: rape, aggravated sexual battery, incest, child molestation, statutory rape, contribution to the delinquency of minor, battery, family violence. Oh, by the way, he beat them. Beat them. Something then happened amazingly that does not happen in these cases. This man who did this to his child looked to his defense attorney, because most of the time when people are convicted of these things, they wait for sentencing. They wait. He turned to his defense attorney and said, "Sentence me now." He actually dropped his head. He knew. He knew. Life plus 56 years. He will never see sunshine outside of a jail ever again. I want to put this in context, folks. If we had not jumped in and done this, this guy would have been released and back among us. What are we telling our children? What are we telling these criminals? What are we telling these murderers with cases like this? What are we saying to everybody, folks? And I'm going to tell you, if you think that this is not going on every week, here's the last 7 days in Miss Gonzalez's office. Ray Hillsman, rape charge, dismissed rape. 2 counts of misdemeanors. Happened last week. You remember the murderer of Mrs. Riley and what he was picked up on? I'm sorry, not picked up on. A citation was issued against him in Athens, Clarke County, shoplifting, right? Some of the people that have attended court now know what I'm about to tell you. Deborah Gonzalez null-prossed a shoplifting charge in the case of Leanne Hutchins this morning, and she did so in open court because she believed that the statute had run because 2 years had passed since the date of the arrest. You won't believe this, but inside of her file, her office, one of the ADAs, actually had accused the case. The statute of limitations didn't apply. She dismissed it. That happened this week. So you have to ask yourself, we've all heard of the term gateway drug. Well, there are gateway crimes that are happening within Athens, Clarke County. And these gateway crimes are leading them to be able to do other crimes. When I'm cited and released, oh, I can do more. You ever seen a thief? How about when they put their hand in the piggy bank when you were a kid, and it took them a while, then that quarter became $1, and that dollar became $5. They're gateway crimes. What do you think is going to happen on that ag assault armed robbery? Think about that. He pointed a gun at someone and said, "Give me your belongings or I will kill you." What's going to be the next one when the trigger's pulled? Friday, a 3-year-old's killed. This community, and where we've got law enforcement that can only do so much.
That's right.
They can arrest, but they can't prosecute, folks.
That's right.
We are in an extremely, extremely dangerous time in Athens. And it doesn't matter if you're Republican. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat. And it doesn't matter if you're an independent.
That's right.
What matters is what is the community we're leaving for our kids and our neighbors and our family and our friends, because the Riley case brought national attention to Athens in a way that we never would have thought. I speak to parents, I speak to people all the time that says, I sent my kid to Athens for an education thinking that it was a safe place. They say that Athens was built on 7 hills and we are in 7 ruts.
Yes.
And I mean that. People, if you don't think this is going to have a trickle-down effect upon what's happened in Athens, you are sadly mistaken. Hotels, walking downtown to businesses, coming to Georgia football games, sending their kids here. Is this a safe place? Questions are being asked of this place that have never been asked before. And they should be asked.
Yes.
And they should be asked in every forum, from an HOA meeting to a Republican meeting to a Democrat meeting, everywhere. And I'm begging you as I end this. You want motivation to do what I asked you to do, to call 20 people or invite me to come? I'll give you motivation. Little Z.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Think about 2 feelings this young lady had. At 14, after being raped, after eating her drug-laced dinner, laying in her bed, with no one to talk to. And then the day comes in which her dad's arrested for what he's been doing. Think about that little girl. You see her? You see her in that bed? You see her crying? Now think about Z last week. I've never seen a mom and a kid who, with the weight of the world lifted off their shoulders, when they knew that they would never face him again in their community. Ecstatic. She's a little dancer. And she's going to be dancing in a spring concert that I'm going to be right there watching her. Think about the joy that's in that girl's heart. Think about the safety that's in that girl's heart. She's not lying in that bed anymore crying, folks. The person that did her wrong is behind bars. Because we had a competent district attorney
Yes. Yes.
from another county that we didn't elect. So it's time to elect the right. It's time for us to get serious. It's time for us to call 20 people that we're not comfortable calling to really talk about this. And then change starts. I thank y'all for the opportunity and help me continue this fight. Thank y'all.